Hi, everyone. I'm Whitney. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm here to talk about sex in public with a large group of people who I don't know very well. This is going to be really fun. I'm a high school science teacher, a certified sex educator, and as many of my students know, a reality TV addict. And so this talk is going to start not with an anecdote about the nature of sex ed from my classroom, but rather an invitation into my living room. Recently, I've been watching a lot of reality TV on the History Channel. I know that seems impossible because it's the History Channel, but it is. They have reality TV as well. And the premise of the show I've been watching is as follows. 10 individuals are dropped off in a remote location, each with 10 items. And their only goal is to survive for as long as possible. They don't come into contact with each other, and the show is totally self-documented, so they may go upwards of 100 days without speaking to another person. From the warm comfort of my bathrobe, I witnessed incredible feats of human resilience, and as we often do with reality TV, I found myself critiquing their strategies, thinking about how I totally could have done it so much better. Saying to myself, the guy who can't fish, he's definitely out first. She's building a shelter out of that. Terrible strategy. Episode after episode elapsed late into the night. And as I watched, an interesting trend emerged. It was never the unskilled who left first. It was those who spoke frequently about their loved ones and the people they had left at home. The loneliness, the absence of relation, it was just as corrosive to their willpower as the sleep deprivation and the starvation, sometimes even more so. Eventually, I was presented with my own reflection in the black screen of the streaming service that asked, "Are you still there?" And I was driven to revelation, both about my need to change out of my sweatpants and a very large change I wanted to make in the way that I approached my professional work. But I'll get to that later. What I witnessed from my couch, it's backed up by research. Psychologists have always been fascinated by what makes us human? What do we need to survive? Maslow's hierarchy of needs is one such psychological theory that hypothesizes about what we need to survive and to thrive. As you can see, Maslow's hierarchy is structurally quite similar to the old school food pyramid. Our most basic needs are foundational and located at the bottom, and as we move up, our needs are more related to thriving, usually more difficult to achieve. If I meet my needs in a particular location, I move up the pyramid. But if I don't, I can get stuck at that location and sometimes resort to unhealthy ways of getting my needs met. You can see my most basic needs are physiological: food, water, sleep, oxygen. Next, my needs related to safety, bodily safety, an environment that doesn't have constant threats. If I meet my physiological needs and my safety needs, according to Maslow, I move directly into my love and belonging needs, not my needs for a good job or a faster car or a bigger paycheck. I'm totally focused on feeling connected and loved and seen by others. I want you to take a moment, and you can close your eyes if you need to. We're going to reflect on this ongoing pandemic. Did you meet all of your needs during this time? Did you breathe? Did you hydrate? Did you sleep? Did you eat nutrient-dense foods? If you were like me, you were basically a walking loaf of sourdough bread by August 2021. Did you feel safe? At home, at school, at work, when you went into the grocery store to get that roll of toilet paper? We all remember that time. When you turned on the news, did you feel safe? And what did that do to your capacity to feel loved and connected? I would argue that if you weren't meeting some of these needs, you may have struggled to connect with the people in your lives in healthy ways. You didn't think I'd get that deep, did you? Sorry. It gets lighter, I promise. The reality of our human experience is that we need to feel this sense of love and belonging for our survival. And if our other needs aren't being met, we might struggle to connect with the people in our lives in healthy ways. The interesting difference between Maslow's first two levels and our connection needs is that we seem to inherently know how to meet our physiological and our safety needs, yet require really challenging and elusive skills to meet our love and belonging needs. I'll give you an example. You're in the car with your friends, you're on your way home from work or from school, and someone says, "I'm starving." And you say, "Okay, where are we going to stop?" In short, your physiological needs are going to be met. But this looks so different when we talk about love and belonging. Your friend in the car says, "I just get the feeling that she's upset with me, and I keep asking her if we're okay. And she says yes to my face, but I just get the vibe something's off." Your brain kicks into overdrive, and you think, should you tell this friend to leave it alone, to pursue it further? Do you tell this friend the truth that you know all about this, and it's because you've been talking about this behind their back? Connection, and specifically healthy connection, is far more nuanced and less innate than we may have been taught. You might see where I'm going with this. I am getting to the reinvention part. I teach health and wellness at the high school level, and that means a large part of my job involves teaching sex education. It'll come as no surprise to most of us that what experts agree should come into a sex ed curriculum has changed very little over the years. I teach about anatomy and STIs and contraceptives and pregnancy. Although, no, I do not show that giving birth video that some of you might remember. That is not a part of it anymore. I answer questions like, what is the hymen, and how do I know when I'm ready for sex, and are 2 condoms better than 1? And spoiler alert, they're not. The reality is that these topics are incredibly important, and I spend a lot of time teaching them, but far fewer of our young people are having sex than we might imagine. In 2019, the CDC released data indicating that about 39%, so around every 2 out of every 5 students, cited being sexually active at some point during their 4 years of high school. And that number has been steadily declining since it was over 50% in the early 90s. So, yes, a percentage of our young people are connecting through physical intimacy, looking for love and belonging through sexual activity. But if I've learned anything from Maslow's hierarchy, I know that 100% of my students are also pursuing connection, looking for a sense of love and belonging in a variety of other ways. And so I have to ask myself, where is that stuff explicitly coming up in my curriculum? So let's return to our story's protagonist. She is, unsurprisingly, still in her sweatpants and still on her couch. It was at this moment that I realized I was approaching teaching wellness, teaching high school sex education, all wrong. If young people are testing out connections in a variety of ways, some of them are pursuing connection through physical intimacy, but all of them are exploring all types of relationships, watching their families and their friends and people on social media navigating all types of relational challenges. Shouldn't sex education and wellness start there? Sexual activity is just one way that some of my students might be choosing to connect, but shouldn't I also be asking my students to explore questions like, how do I communicate honestly? How do I connect authentically? How do I hold on to a relationship with myself when I'm dating somebody new and I'm just obsessed with them? Call it what you want, but I don't know if it should be called sex education. It should be called connection education or relationship education, maybe love and belonging education. The way that we teach young people about high school sex education needs to evolve. All of our young people deserve a purposeful education in all of the ways that we would seek out those basic needs, which are love and belonging. Should I still include those particular sex ed topics in my curriculum? Of course, they are really important, and I think it's the draw for a health class anyway. When we're here, we're going to talk about sex. But those topics can be taught within the context of a larger conversation about all of the ways that we seek connection. Just think about how much more fruitful a conversation about sex or intimacy or consent could be if all of the young people and all of the adults in the conversation had a robust foundation of knowledge about what healthy connection and community looks like. And I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge that young people are learning about this in a variety of ways. I know they see it in elementary and in middle school. They hear it from their families, from their friends, online, definitely online. It's not like this information isn't out there for them to access, but I would argue that as a place where young people spend the majority of their time, a high school classroom is an additional place where all of this information about healthy connections and love and belonging should be practically and purposefully taught at all levels. So enough about me and my thoughts on this and my sweatpants and my couch. You've heard enough. Let's focus on you. I'm going to give you an assignment. I'm still a teacher after all, and I know my seniors who I currently have are probably rolling their eyes. For this assignment, you'll need to do a bit of prep work as a group. As you're leaving tonight, maybe in the car with your friends or family, maybe out in the lobby, feel free to come chat with me. I want you to discuss two questions. What do I define as a healthy connection? And how does it feel when I'm connecting well? And yes, it would be so much easier if I gave you the definition, but that's not how this works. Healthy connection is personal and can be really fluid based on the situation. For me, sometimes healthy connection looks like telling someone I love something that's going to be really hard for them to hear. And sometimes it looks like just shutting up and letting them vent. Once you're done with this group work, you can move on to your independent assignment. Consider this your nightly homework for my class. At the end of as many days as you can manage, I want you to ask yourself, how did I connect today? And when you respond internally or maybe in a journal or in a notes document, I don't want you to talk about the who, what, when, where, and why of the scenario. I want you to answer in the context of connecting well. Ask yourself, how did I connect today? And did I connect well? And this assignment is going to be pretty difficult. We're all going to have days where it feels impossible to have a single healthy connection. I know I have plenty of those days. We have had a pandemic's worth of time to be isolated, to lose our connection skills, to feel our communities and our sense of belonging totally ripped from us. We've had 2 to 3 years worth of time to have probably a lot of really shitty connection moments. We've been taught that what matters most is what falls under the umbrella of connection rather than healthy and purposeful connection as a whole. And so I'll leave you with your homework assignment and a final thought. What I've been trying to convince you of is that high school sex education needs a reinvention. And I wholeheartedly believe this. But I think that this applies to all of us, whether we are high school students or not. I think that we are all long overdue for a connection reinvention, and it's going to start with purposefully connecting well. Thank you, everybody.